Hello, thank you for joining me today. I am Hannah Dormido. I'm a graphics reporter and I used to work for Bloomberg News, but in a few days' time, I will be joining the Washington Post graphics team as a graphics reporter with a focus in cartography. And today I'm going to show you my process in making maps for news. Basically, it's more of like, how does Hannah make maps at work? So I will try my best to show you the basics of like how I come up with a map. If we do it for breaking news or for a bigger story that will go with a news story. So these are some examples of the maps that I did create while I was at Bloomberg. And then, what is my mapping toolkit? So the basics that I can survive with would be QGIS, Google My Maps, and Adobe Illustrator. So QGIS, that's where the magic happens, like building the map from scratch. But I use Google My Maps to make my process more efficient in terms of putting in locations, adding roads, adding lines from one point to another. And that's my personal hack. There are a number of ways that you can do this, but for me, like Google My Maps have been godsend. Like it's been very efficient for me so far. So I really use this. And for finalizing the design, creating different sizes for my maps in terms of what screen it will be used on, that would be Adobe Illustrator. The more you do maps, the more your toolkit expands. So sometimes I do use a Blender as well, but not very often. But Blender would be very good in creating like nicer reliefs for your maps. But if I am working in a tight deadline, that would just be in QGIS and Photoshop. If I can't get just the right sharpness or just the right color for the relief or the map colors, then I would pop it into Photoshop for a little bit and just improve and enhance those colors. But for today, I'm going to focus on this three. If I can't get into Adobe Illustrator, then at least I can show you Google My Maps and then the QGIS process. So where do I get my sources? Very important for me would be Natural Earth. And I think a lot of us really use this site. So for the shape files, for the base map, for the relief, Natural Earth is my go-to website. OpenStreetMap is also very useful in terms of adding roads and other locations that are not available in Natural Earth. I would usually either pull OpenStreetMap from QGIS or just download directly from the website. If I am doing custom reliefs, I would go to two sites that Derek Watkins have created. So Derek works for the New York Times, and these sites are very useful for me. So this is where you can get the tiles that you can edit and use for your custom reliefs. So you can check them out. After this presentation, the link to this would be available, and I would place all the hyperlinks in there so you will have a place to like find Natural Earth and the sites by Derek. So these are, if you don't know where to start, these are very good sites to bookmark. Okay, so now mapping time. So let me quickly shift to QGIS to show you my process. So if you have your shapefiles ready, and if you're new into this, you just have to drag and drop your files into your screen and they should open up. You wouldn't necessarily get the colors that I have on the screen, but it's very easy to edit them. So what you can do is just double click on your layer And then the layer properties will come up, and this is where you change the colors for your base map. Usually for us who would use QGIS or map on a daily basis, we have our own base maps that have been styled, but I'm going to do this from scratch so you can just see how to easily change it. So here you can put in the colors that you would like for your base. So usually we would use grayish base to start with. And then here you can see I have the Jammu and Kashmir polygon. This is a disputed territory in India. And then I have the ocean layer. Currently it is not visible because I have removed the colors, but if that layer is something that you would like, then you can definitely edit the colors so that it would show on your screen. So let's say I do not need the ocean layer for now, so I would stick with my countries layer and my added Jammu and Kashmir polygon. So if I want to add locations on this map, say there's a breaking news story that I need to create a map for, or to just do a map very quickly, I would go to Google My Maps. So here, Google My Maps is free. It should be tied with your Google account. So it's not Google Maps, it's Google My Maps. Here, you can give it a name. So let's say this is a NACIS test map. And what I like about this is you don't necessarily have to know the coordinates, and it's very user-friendly. You use it like how you use Google Maps. So say I want to add the Philippines in here, it will automatically do that for me. So let's say those are all the locations that I want and need for this map. I would just do export to KML and just do the entire map. And then that file that we just downloaded can just be dragged and dropped to QGIS. So that took you what, a few minutes. And for you to edit the markers, so you double click on the layer again, you can change the colors here. So let's say I just want black. I hit apply, it changes the color on the screen. If you want labels, so you know what your locations are, what your markers are, you can do that in this same property tab. So just say, okay, I want the names. And then on your screen, you should see them there. All right. One thing that I forgot was it's important to change the projection of your map before you forget doing it. So I did that earlier on, so I was not able to show you, but for a world map, say you want to use a World Robinson projection, which I currently have. So you just go to project, properties, and then you look for the projection that you want. So we have Robinson, we're all good. So say those are all the locations that you want. And for a world map, usually, you want it simple, but let's say you need a relief. You could go to Natural Earth. So this is where these links come very, very handy. So we can do Natural Earth, downloads, raster. Okay, so here it really depends on what kind of map you're working on or what kind of feel you want to achieve. But let's say we want to use the shaded relief for this one. It's quite simple. you can download either large or medium size. For this exercise, let's do medium. If you want to check out Natural Earth, you can just go and click on these links. And this is actually just a treasure chest of like the amazing things that you can do for your maps. So if you want ports, they're here. Usually I would stick with countries and then states if you're doing more detailed maps. Roads are here as well. For places that I think you would need roads with like secondary roads or more detail, that's where OpenStreetMap would be quite useful. Okay, so let's do that. So once you've downloaded, it's quite easy, drag and drop. It can be intimidating at first, but once you get, the hang of things, it's totally easy, drag and drop. All right, and then what you can do is tweak the relief based on how strongly you want it to appear on your map. So let's say for me, I want it a bit subtle. So I'm on the wrong layer. Let's say, okay. So now you have a relief, but I would like my countries. All right, here we go. It's currently a bit too strong for my liking. So we're going to edit it down a bit. Yeah, so it's trial and error. It depends on what kind of feel you're going for and how important the relief is for your map. So currently, I think that works for me. I'm gonna move this down. Okay. That looks good. So that is a quick way of doing a world map. You can print this once you're ready. So you use this icon right here, which tells you, okay, I want to print this map out. So it's gonna render whatever is on your screen. So that's fine for me because I'm gonna edit this in Illustrator ideally. But here you can add details that you would need for your map. So say you want to add a scale, you do that here. You can choose the units for your scale. So you say if you want miles, kilometers, you can edit that here. If you do want both miles and kilometers and you want to make sure it's accurate, you can just do the scale twice, which I usually do because in my former job, we would use miles and kilometers for our readers. So that would be technically everything I need for a quick map showing locations. And then I would export this as an SVG and then open it up in Illustrator. So that is the quick way of making a map for news. And as our stories get more complicated, we would add reliefs or do custom reliefs for specific areas. I do not have much time, but thank you so much for mapping with me. And I am happy to answer your questions if you have any. You can find me in this email address. I'm also on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm happy to help you out if you have QGIS or mapping questions. Thank you.
So I think we will, if there are any questions from the audience, and are there any secret tips to the print screen in QGIS?
There's really none, but if you want tips of like adding scale and stuff, so I think people don't realize sometimes that you can add bits and pieces there and you don't have to like trace your scale. So on the left hand side, when you do Command Shift P, it will pull up your print screen, and then you can add scale. You can add the legend directly from your QGIS window. That's all I have for print screen.
Let's see, any other questions from the group here? I see some conversation about a batch geocoder, and I don't know if you want to weigh in on that.
Usually I don't do batch geocode for breaking news stories because that's just too, like, you have to wait. And for us, so when information comes in, I would put it in Google My Maps, or when a story starts happening, even if we are not really sure if these are the right locations and stuff, I would just start putting them in Google My Maps. And it's also easy to share it with my colleagues and say, okay, I've started tracking this event. Locations might not be accurate at this point, but this is what I have. So it's quite easy that way, especially for like developing stories.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. I really appreciate you taking some time with us.